right, Jeff, do you have any more questions waiting for us?
I do, yeah, I do. I have an interesting math question here. This is, let's see here. This is a math question that has to do with simplifying expressions. And it's by a guy named Tom Hanks. I guess he's a friend of the show. And he wants to know, it says, to simplify this expression, 1/4 plus 1/4, parentheses, a plus 8, plus 74. Now that is
1 divided by 4 times a.
Oh, maybe that's.
It's always kind of hard to.
Oh,
write
it is.
out
Oh, yeah. Okay, so that's not a fourth.
notation.
That's 1 divided by 4, plus 1 divided by 4, parentheses a plus 8, plus 74.
A plus 8. Is the 74 plus 74 in the parentheses? Where do the parentheses?
No, the parentheses ends after the 8.
Plus
think
74. So if I have, I wrote it down on my screen. Jeff, could you tell me? We'll flash it up on the monitor. But could you tell me if that's that's what it says?
Yes, that is correct. Yeah, that's what that says. Let's see.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah.
I could take it since I've already got it written down here.
I'm wondering if it means, because the way they wrote it, I just pulled it up here, that they mean the a plus 8 should be in the denominator. That would make more sense, I think.
So
it's always hard to see these notations.
Yeah, it's hard because you can't tell.
So let's try. Yeah. So like.
I think that's what it's supposed to be. Because technically, they would put the 1 divided by 4 in parentheses if they wanted it to be 1/4 times a plus 8. Assuming that they know, or that they're aware of the mathematical notation importance there.
Okay.
And then I just think about what we often do in algebra with common denominators. Just thinking that might be what it needs to be.
Okay. I could do either one of them. So we're thinking common denominators. I mean, that's going to be way more complicated of a problem. All right. So one of the things that I wanted to point out here, and actually since this problem is a little bit different, in fact, it might not be best to distribute the 4 as well if we're going to be combining common denominators. Okay, well, we'll pretend that the expression on the bottom is what we're working on. If it's not, you just call us back and let us know. Sometimes, as Nathan said, it is very difficult to type mathematical notation using a keyboard. So here's a suggestion is you could take a picture or a photo of the problem if it's maybe in a textbook, especially if it's something difficult with fractions or parentheses and you're not sure how to actually type that. But for now, I'll go with this question and
I'll just give Tom Hanks a call later and let him know that it's a little confusing. And
come on, Tom Hanks, your question's confusing.
He's got time on his hand right now, I think.
So when we add fractions, and I guess I'm going to go to maybe a simpler example of adding fractions and combining terms. One of the things that we need to have if we're adding fractions is we need to have common denominators. That's a must. And actually, I was talking about this on the show yesterday. The denominator is what names the fraction, and so they have to have the same name in order to put them together. What I mean when I say that is 2 oranges plus 3 apples. If they don't have the same name, we can't really put them together unless we change the name to something that's common, like 2 fruit plus 3 fruit gives us 5 fruit. So if you notice this denominator here, actually let's just start with the 74. Because this throws people off sometimes as they wonder, oh, well, that's not a fraction. How can I get common denominators if I don't have a fraction? So any whole number we can put over 1, because 74 divided by 1 still has the same value as 74, so I'm not changing any value here. I'm just giving it a denominator. To get common denominators, one of the strategies is to factor your denominators and then find out, what each denominator is missing. And what you might notice on this denominator, our first one, is it's actually missing this a plus 8. And one of the moves that we can do when we are working with fractions is we can multiply a fraction by the same thing over itself. something over itself. And that's because when we do that, it's like multiplying by 1. So I'm going to multiply both the numerator and denominator by this a plus 8 over a plus 8. And the reason I'm going to do that is, again, to get this denominator, this 4, to be the same as this denominator, to give us common denominators. Then it looks like this fraction in the middle does not need anything else added to the denominator in order to make it the same as the first fraction that we have there. It's already it has both pieces. And then the 74 over 1, that is actually going to need both of the factors that are there. So we're going to multiply both numerator and denominator by 4 times a plus 8 and over 4 times a plus 8. And that, again, then makes all of our denominators the same. So in the next line here, we're just going to simplify what we have so that our fractions are they're combined and put together. So on the numerator of the first fraction, we have 1 times a plus 8, which 1 times anything is just itself. And then on the denominator, we have that common denominator that we wanted, which is the 4 times a plus 8. Then our middle fraction, we have not changed at all, so we can just rewrite that. And then plus, and the top fraction here, we have, our numerator there, we need to do some simplifying, so we're going to multiply 74 times 4, which gives us 296. And then we also have it times this a plus 8, which I'll do in another step just so it doesn't get too confusing. Now, at this point, we have common denominators, and so when we have common denominators, we can add our fractions together. Our denominator will be the same. So, for example, again, if I do 1/4 plus 1/4, we add our numerators, and we keep the same denominator. We're just following, with these algebraic fractions, we're following the same rules that we would follow with just regular fractions. So denominator stays the same, numerator gets put together. So our denominator on our new expression is going to be 4 times a plus 8. That's our denominator still from before. And the numerator is now going to be all of our numerators added together. So we have a plus 8 plus 1, that's our second denominator, plus 296 times a plus 8. Now, actually, at this point, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to distribute this 296 times a plus 8, just so I can maybe eliminate steps. So erasing that there, I'm going to simplify it a little bit more. So the 296 times a will just give you 296a, and then the 296 times 8 is going to give us 2,368. Now at this point, we want to actually simplify that numerator there, combining any like terms. This a can be combined with the 296a. Oh, that color's awful. Let me do that with a lighter color. A and 296a, those can be put together to give us 297a. And then our other like terms, we have 8 and 1 and 2,368. So we have 9 plus 2,368, which gives us 2,377. And that's going to be all over 4 times a plus 8. So one thing that we might want to check is if 4 is a factor of these, and it doesn't look like 4 is a factor because we might want to eliminate 4 and 4. What I'm kind of focusing on right now is this 4 here. Seeing if I could factor a 4 out of this expression on the top here, but it looks like I can't do that, and so this is actually in simplest form. So let me actually write that one more time.
It looks pretty simple, the form that it's in.
Really simple, right? Right. This was 296. Meaning we can't simplify it anymore. You're right. Not very simple, but can't simplify it anymore. So this would be our expression, how we simplify that. If that was the problem that you meant to do. So hopefully that helps. I don't know. Do you have anything to add to that?
No, I think you did a good job, thorough job of explaining it and using the example of something simpler. So
cool.
Those, again, just take some practice.
They do. And if you can remember the rules for regular fractions, then that helps, because the rules really are the same. We're just working with variables instead.
I would actually say if you're having a really hard time with this and you have historically had a hard time with fractions, it might be a good idea to just work with fractions for a little while. Because if you understand the properties of fractions, then that's really what you're doing.
It's very true. It's very true. As complicated as these look, they really are not. Again, it's knowing the rules of fractions.
Right.